There is a very specific restlessness that has begun to accompany you in recent days, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is that strange sensation of waiting for something without being able to name what it is. A silent agitation that does not go away even when you try to distract yourself. A peculiar exhaustion that does not come from the body and does not pass with sleep. Dreams more vivid than usual. Old memories returning uninvited in the middle of the day. Conversations repeating in a loop in your head, even when you have already decided not to think about them anymore. Perhaps it was a person who appeared out of nowhere in your thoughts. Perhaps a scene from 10, 15 years ago that returned as if it had happened yesterday. Perhaps a sudden urge to change everything or the opposite. A strange paralysis in the face of decisions that seemed simple last week. You opened this video thinking it was curiosity or impulse, and I'm going to tell you right now, without stalling, your presence here is not accidental and it is not an algorithm. There is a window opening between August 27 and 28, and your field has already begun to respond to it even before your rational mind understands what is happening. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why these 2 days function as a turning point, what concrete signs may appear beforehand, what needs to end before the month closes, and the only conscious protocol that separates those who cross this portal with clarity from those who only feel the energy pass and then blame stress, PMS, work, or fatigue. Stay until the end, because the most important part of this video is not the eclipse itself. It is what comes after. Let's align the map before anything else. Between August 27 and 28, the sky combines two forces that rarely converse with this intensity at the same time. On one side, the full moon, the point of maturation of an entire cycle, the moment when that which was planted months ago finally appears without disguise, without a filter, without the convenient possibility of being ignored. On the other side, the lunar eclipse, which is not just a beautiful astronomical spectacle to post a photo of on Instagram. It is a symbolic overlap of shadow over that which was already illuminated. It is the moon being temporarily swallowed by the shadow of the earth, and in this symbolic language, this means that something that was being seen in one way begins to be seen in another, because the external light source is interrupted, and the only light that remains is internal. When these two events meet at the same moment, the symbolic result is brutally simple. That which you have been successfully ignoring ceases to be ignorable. It is not that something new appears in your life. It is that the filter falls away. The excuses that worked in July stop working. The distraction you used to avoid looking at a relationship, a decision, a truth about yourself, begins to lose its potency. That is why the preceding days matter so much. The eclipse does not start on the 27th at 11 o'clock at night. It starts now, in the form of small signs, small cracks in your routine, small emotions out of place, small coincidences that most will mistake for chance. And here enters the first separation that I need you to understand with absolute clarity, because this separation defines everything that comes after. Faced with a window like this, humanity divides into two completely distinct groups. The sleeping majority will feel the exact same internal pressure that you are feeling at this very moment, but will attribute all of it to external and mundane causes. They will say they are stressed because of work. They will say they slept poorly because of afternoon coffee. They will say they fought with their partner because of a specific thing that happened, without realizing that that specific thing was merely the superficial trigger for a much deeper pressure that was seeking any escape valve. These people will go through August 27 and 28 reacting. They will fight without understanding the real reason. They will make impulsive decisions that will later cost them dearly. They will send messages in the middle of the night that they will need to delete in the morning. They will end things out of anger when they should end them out of lucidity, or they will continue things out of fear when they should end them out of lucidity, or they will simply sleep more, eat more, drink more, and wait for the week to pass, and the window will close for them, not because the universe is unfair or selective, but because a door that is not recognized as a door remains merely a wall. You belong to the minority that can name what is happening before reacting. This gives you an advantage that most do not even know exists. But this advantage only serves you if you have the internal infrastructure to use it with consciousness. And it is upon this infrastructure that this entire video is built. That was why I prepared the Magia M28 Exercicios as 28 Chaves do Despertar for you. And it is exactly now that it needs to enter the conversation, not 10 minutes from now, not after the eclipse, now. It is not a fluffy spirituality course. It is not generic meditation. It is not motivational content. It is a concrete 28-day journey, a complete lunar cycle designed to transform this restlessness you feel today into clear language, this shadow into practical direction, these signs into concrete decisions, this consciousness into physical movement in your real life. Each exercise is a key that opens a specific piece of what this eclipse is asking you to look at. While most will cross August 28th on autopilot, you will cross it with a map in hand and a calibrated compass. The link is in the first pinned comment below the video, and I need you to go there before you continue watching. Because the next part of the script only truly works if you already know that there is a ready structure waiting for you on the other side. If you recognize that this window is yours, comment now. I am ready. This word is not decoration. It is a seal of energetic commitment to yourself, the first small movement that begins to differentiate those who only listen from those who begin to act. Returning now to practical ground, because theory without application is spiritual entertainment, and spiritual entertainment is exactly what most consume to feel like they are evolving without needing to change anything. The signs that appear before a lunar eclipse have a recognizable signature for those who know how to read them. Coincidences that pile up in an almost absurd way, the name of a person appearing 3 times in 3 completely different contexts in the same week, a specific word that you start seeing everywhere, a number that repeats on the clock, on a license plate, on a grocery receipt, dreams that seem to have their own weight, that wake you up with a racing heart and a phrase burned into your mind, dreams in which old houses appear, dead people, versions of yourself from other ages, scenarios that you cannot explain, but that carry an emotion that lasts the entire day after waking up, memories that come uninvited, especially from phases of your life that you thought you had completely processed, from relationships you thought you had already forgotten, from decisions you thought you had already resolved in therapy, re-encounters that arrive out of nowhere, a message from someone who disappeared for years, an unexpected invitation that reopens a door you had closed, a street encounter with someone you did not expect nor want to see again, plans that dismantle without warning, trips that fall through, projects that stall, doors that close in your face even after you pushed hard, and emotions that return in waves disproportionate to the stimuli, a sadness without apparent reason that appears in the middle of the afternoon, an absurd anger over a small thing, a nostalgia that hurts in a way that made no sense last week. None of this in isolation proves anything. A strange dream is just a dream. A coincidence is just a coincidence. An unexpected memory is just a memory. But when 3, 4, 5 of these elements appear together in a short interval of time, this ceases to be chance and becomes a pattern. And a pattern in the symbolic language we are speaking of is the field reorganizing itself before the point of culmination. It is the theater being set up before the main scene. It is the orchestra tuning the instruments before the overture. And the classic mistake of most is to confuse the sign with the message. The sign only exists to force you to stop. It is not the answer. It is the invitation to look for the answer. The message itself requires interpretation, and interpretation requires silence. And silence is exactly what most cannot produce in a week like this, because the same pressure that generates the signs also generates the compulsion for distraction, for movement, for conversation, for infinite scrolling, for anything that prevents the encounter with what is trying to emerge from within. That is why the next paragraphs are the most important in this video, and I need you to close other tabs, stop scrolling the feed in the background, and listen with real attention. If you have caught yourself in recent days with an urgent feeling that you need to do something, change everything, send that message, make that decision, cut that person off, move cities, scream at someone, quit your job, end the relationship. This is the time to understand a technical truth about how spiritual portals truly work. A portal is not a pretty astronomical event. A portal is the turning point where the internal cost of remaining stuck in your current life becomes greater than the internal terror of taking the next step. You take the step first. The ground appears after. Never before. No one ever received the guarantee before jumping. Every guarantee is retroactive, and it is retroactive exactly because the jump itself reorganizes reality around the one who jumped. And that is precisely why the eclipse did not come to tell you what to do. It is not an external voice giving instructions. It came to show you, with a clarity that will no longer admit disguise, that which has already died inside you and continues to be carried as if it were alive. Because every eclipsed full moon revolves around a single central theme, and that theme is closure. And closure is not what most think it is. Closure is not breaking up in a dramatic way. It is not burning all bridges. It is not tearing up contracts. It is not disappearing without explanation. It is not posting hints. It is not blocking everyone. It is not giving that epic brush-off. True closure is something much more silent and much more adult. It is the discreet courage to recognize what you are keeping out of fear, out of attachment or out of habit, and no longer out of real and conscious choice. Let's separate this into 4 concrete layers, because this is the real work of this window, and without this separation, you will hear all this and not know where to apply it. First layer, relationships that survive only by shared history. Relationships that continue to exist because ending them would be admitting that years were invested in something that no longer serves, when in truth, ending them is precisely honoring everything that was lived and stopping the pushing of a corpse uphill. Friendships maintained by habit, encounters that no longer nourish anyone, calls that both sides make out of obligation. This includes romantic partnerships where real conversation no longer exists, only shared logistics. This includes family bonds where exchange no longer exists, only demands and guilt. Second layer, habits that were built by a version of you that no longer exists. Routines that serve to protect you from a specific pain that is no longer the same pain today. Behaviors that made sense at 25 years old and remain active at 35, 40, 50, simply because they were never revised. The way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you spend money, the way you use your phone, the way you react to conflicts. Much of what you do today is an automatic response to stimuli that no longer exist in your life. And while these responses remain active, they occupy energy and space that should be serving your current version. Third layer, beliefs inherited from family, religion, or culture that you never had the chance to question because you never had the internal space for it. Ideas about success, about money, about love, about what it means to be a good son, a good father, a good wife, a good person. Many of these ideas were formed before you had the critical capacity to evaluate them, and they continue to determine choices that you think you are making freely. This eclipse exposes exactly these beliefs because the shadow that passes over the moon functions symbolically as the same shadow that needs to pass over the mental surface to reveal what is underneath. And finally, fourth layer, fears. Fears that disguise themselves as prudence, as responsibility, as maturity, as common sense, but which are actually just old contracts that you signed in moments of pain and never revoked. The fear of disappointing, the fear of being rejected, the fear of being alone, the fear of making a mistake in public, the fear of losing the little that has been conquered, the fear of not being able to start over. Each of these fears is an invisible contract, and each invisible contract is a prison that you yourself keep locked from the inside. The eclipse brings a specific invitation to each of these 4 layers, and the invitation is always the same. Will you continue carrying this for the next months and years, or will you have the courage to let it drop? Because, and this is important, nothing forces you to let go. You can choose to continue. The universe will not punish you for keeping what has already died. But choosing with consciousness is radically different from dragging by inertia, and that difference is all the difference that exists between a life lived and a life survived. Starting from August 29th, the effects of this choice will begin to organize themselves in your external reality. Those who chose consciously will notice a lightness they haven't had for months, a clarity about next steps that previously seemed obscure, an alignment between thought, word, and action that was missing. Those who were merely dragged will notice the same problems returning with double force, demanding attention anyway, because that which is not faced consciously is faced unconsciously. And the second scenario is always more expensive. And that is exactly why the phase we are entering demands a discipline that is the complete opposite of what the emotional intensity is asking of you at this moment. The full moon amplifies everything. The eclipse distorts perceptions. Together, they create an internal pressure that can easily be confused with clarity, with purpose, with direction. Triple caution here. Not every urgency is wisdom. Not every strong urge is real direction. Not every sudden certainty is truth. A large part of the most destructive decisions in people's lives were taken in windows exactly like this one, with the absolute feeling that it had to be now, that it wasn't possible to wait one more day, that any delay would be a betrayal of oneself. And 3 months later, these same people look back and recognize that they acted out of anxiety disguised as purpose, out of fear disguised as courage, out of reaction disguised as decision. You do not need to make that mistake. There is a technical, almost clinical difference between reacting and responding, and this difference is the only thing that separates those who emerge from an eclipse more whole from those who emerge more broken. Reacting is the automatic explosion of the nervous system in the face of stimuli that activate old wounds. Responding is the conscious pause that is placed between the stimulus and the action, a pause in which discernment can enter, in which the rational mind can calibrate what the emotion is screaming, in which true intuition can be separated from the compulsion that disguises itself as intuition. If you have made it this far and feel that this video is speaking directly to a piece of you that no one else is touching, this is not random coincidence. It is exactly the kind of sign I was talking about a few minutes ago. The Magia M28 Exercicios was built to function as this technical pause day after day, during an entire cycle. Each of the 28 keys is a short practical exercise that interrupts the automatic reaction and gives you back command. The link remains in the first pinned comment, and the number of spots for the next follow-up window closes before the 27th. Do not leave it until after the eclipse. The tool needs to be in your hand beforehand. And here is where most people make the fatal mistake of thinking that real preparation for the eclipse involves elaborate rituals, crystals positioned in a specific way, baths with 7 rare herbs bought in specialty stores, long invocations in front of the mirror at midnight. None of this is wrong in itself, but none of it is essential, and insisting on it is frequently a sophisticated way of running away from what truly matters. True preparation for a night like those of August 27th and 28 is made of much simpler things, and precisely because they are simple, much more uncomfortable things. First, reduce external stimuli in the 3 preceding days. This means less social media, less news, less empty conversation, less background noise, less series entering on autopilot to fill the silence, less compulsive consumption of others' opinions on any subject. Not because these things are bad in themselves, but because they occupy exactly the internal space that needs to be free for you to be able to hear what is being said from within. If you fill all the corners of your consciousness with external input, there is no room left for what is trying to emerge from underneath. Second, take pen and paper. Do not type on your phone or computer. Write by hand for real, and list 3 things in 3 separate columns: what needs to end, what needs to start, and what needs to continue but in a different form than the current one. Do not think too much before writing. Do not filter. Let the hand write before the mind censors. You will be surprised by what comes out when you stop trying to control the process. Third, observe emotional patterns throughout the day without trying to fix anything. If anger appears, just note that it appeared. If sadness appears, just note it. If euphoria appears, note it with double caution, because euphoria on the eve of an eclipse is frequently a defense mechanism against what is trying to emerge from underneath, an attempt by the system to flee upward before having to descend. Fourth, on the night of the 27th, do a simple meditation. It doesn't need to be long. 15 minutes are enough. Sit in silence, close your eyes, and just breathe while observing which images, which names, which phrases, which faces rise to consciousness without you calling them. Do not judge in the moment. Do not interpret in the moment. Write it down after. And fifth, define a clear intention for the next cycle, A single intention, written in one sentence, started with an action verb in the present tense. Do not ask, declare. The difference in language here is gigantic. Asking keeps you in the position of one who waits for someone or something to do for you. Declaring puts you in the position of one who has already moved internally, and the external only catches up later to what has already been decided within. These 5 steps seem small because they are small individually, but their accumulated effect is what separates those who cross the eclipse with a calibrated compass from those who cross completely in the dark. And here goes the part that almost no one is telling you, the part that matters most and that is most omitted in generic videos about eclipses. The eclipse itself is not the most important moment. The decisive moment starts after, exactly when the energy of the window dissipates and you are left alone with the perceptions you had. Because perceiving is easy, feeling is easy. Having an epiphany on a night charged with lunar energy is easy. The difficult part, the truly difficult part, is sustaining the perception as a concrete choice throughout the following days and weeks, when the energetic intensity decreases and daily life returns with all its demands, requirements, and distractions. In the days following August 28th, a part of you will start trying to minimize everything that was seen. It will start to rationalize. It will start to say it was an impression, that you were too emotional, that in truth the situation isn't that serious, that that relationship has its problems but also has good things, and you were being dramatic, that that job isn't perfect but it pays the bills and you shouldn't be so demanding, that that pattern you've already tried to change 1,000 times and couldn't so better to accept who you are. This voice will return. It always returns. It is the voice of psychological survival, trying to restore the previous state, because the previous state is familiar even being bad, and the unknown is scary even being better. And the only real antidote against this voice is to have in writing in your own hand that which you recognized on the night of the eclipse. Without this concrete, physical, tangible record, memory will naturally soften throughout the days, and the softening will turn into minimization, and the minimization will turn into forgetting, and forgetting will turn into one more lost cycle, one more window that passed without transforming anything. That is why the Magia M28 exercicios accompanies you exactly during these 4 weeks following the eclipse, 1 exercise per day, a whole lunar cycle, so that what you saw on the night of August 27th and 28th does not become one more forgotten epiphany in the middle of October, one more brilliant perception that died in the first difficult week. This is the technical difference between waking up for a moment and remaining awake, between feeling the window pass and actually crossing the window to the other side. If you have reached this point in the video, you no longer belong to the group of those who only watch passively. You belong to the group of those who decide, and deciding now means clicking on the first pinned comment, guaranteeing your access before the 27th, and starting tomorrow morning with the first key already active in your field. After the eclipse, the price of the tool is the same, but the internal cost of having missed the window is incalculable. You were warned in time. What you do with this warning is entirely your responsibility. In the days that follow the eclipse, you will start to perceive, almost in slow motion, that your life organizes itself around very small, almost invisible choices made early in the morning and at night before sleeping. It is not the large, dramatic decisions that define the course of a cycle. It is the daily micro-decisions that do the real work, the type of thought you choose to feed as soon as you wake up, the message you decide not to respond to on impulse, the old habit that you recognize in the middle of execution and interrupt for the first time, the difficult conversation you have instead of postponing one more time, the invitation you refuse because you know that accepting would be regression disguised as kindness, the book you choose to open instead of the feed, the extra hour of sleep you prioritize over the series. The eclipse shows you the complete map with all coordinates updated. The following days are the real walk upon that map. And the walk demands a specific type of courage that is neither dramatic nor heroic. It is rhythmic and discreet. It is the quiet courage to show up every day for the version of you that is trying to be born, even when the old version is screaming inside to be preserved. That which was seen on the night of August 27th and 28th needs to become a concrete decision before September 15th. It is not a mystical deadline, it is a practical deadline. After that mark, the field crystallizes. The following windows have other themes, and what was not chosen consciously will be chosen by inertia. And inertia always chooses the repetition of the old pattern, because the old pattern is the path of least energetic resistance for the system. Do not let inertia choose for you. This video you just watched was merely the preparation. It gave you the map of the window and the vocabulary to name what is happening inside and around you. But the revelation of what all this means for the new phase that opens after August 28th, and mainly what comes between September and the next solar eclipse, is in the next video appearing now on the screen. Click on it. The first 60 seconds will completely reorganize the way you understand the next 3 months of your life. If you are not subscribed to the channel, you will receive only loose pieces of this larger map. And loose pieces of a map are worse than no map at all, because they create the illusion of orientation without the substance. Each video here is a coordinate within a continuous cartography, and to miss the sequence is to miss the context. Turn on the bell so you don't miss the next coordinates. Comment "I am in" if you already know that you did not find this transmission by chance, and move on to the next video now. The window has already begun, and from this exact moment on, what happens inside it depends entirely on what you do with what you just heard.